Civilization 6 costs $60, but if you want everything the developers made for this game, you need another $250 on top of that. $310 for one game. Total War Warhammer is 3 separate games, plus over 50 paid DLC packs. Assassin's Creed Odyssey sells experience boosters directly inside a game you already paid for. These aren't exceptions. This is the system. And today, we're going to break down exactly how it works. Let's start with where DLC came from and why it actually made sense at first. In the disc era, developers got paid once, at the moment of sale. Supporting a game after launch, fixing bugs, adding content, all of that cost money they didn't have. Studios shut down. Games got abandoned after release. The internet changed that. For the first time in history, a developer could send an update directly to a player's console. And for the first time, a question appeared: who pays for this? The first model was honest. The expansion pack, a large edition, months of work, dozens of hours of content priced at half the original. Warcraft, Starcraft, Diablo, they all worked this way. You got almost an entire game for half the money. It was a deal that worked for both sides. Then online storefronts appeared on consoles, and it turned out you could sell not just large editions, but small ones, very small ones, and people bought them. Today there are 3 main monetization models through DLC. None of them are necessarily bad on their own, but each has a point where it starts working against the player. Model 1, content DLC, new missions, characters, factions. Civilization and Total War work exactly this way. The problem appears when that content could have been in the base game, but was deliberately cut to sell separately. The line between "we didn't have time" and "we cut this on purpose" is very thin, and it isn't always honest. Model 2, progression acceleration. The game is cheap, but the progress inside it is deliberately slowed down. For real money, you can move faster. Assassin's Creed Odyssey is the textbook example. Technically, you can finish the game without spending a single extra dollar. But the progression curve is built to make that feel unpleasant. Model 3, cosmetics, skins, appearances, emotes, doesn't affect gameplay. Theoretically, the most honest model. In practice, in multiplayer games, cosmetics become social pressure. Everyone has the rare skin, you don't. Take Assassin's Creed Odyssey. It's a good game, a massive world, an interesting story, beautiful ancient Greece. But inside this good game, there's a system that works against you. For the first 20 hours, the progression feels comfortable. You earn experience, unlock abilities, feel your character growing. Then the curve quietly shifts. Enemies start out-leveling you. To continue the main story, you need to grind side quests, a lot of them, or buy an experience booster from the store. In 2018, internal Ubisoft documents were found inside the game's files. They stated it directly. The progression curve was calibrated to support monetization. This isn't an accidental imbalance. It's a design decision. Ubisoft responded. They released a patch that slightly sped up progression, but the boosters stayed because they make money. Here's the important thing to understand. Ubisoft didn't make a bad game. They built a system inside a good game that creates discomfort and then offers to remove that discomfort for money. That's not evil intent. That's a business decision. Civilization and Total War are a different case. There are no boosters here and no slowed progression. The base game works honestly. But look at the DLC list. Civilization 6, in its base version, has 18 civilizations. The full collection has over 50. Each new civilization costs between $5 and $10. Some of them, Portugal, Babylon, Ethiopia, aren't small additions. They're fully realized nations with unique mechanics that change how the game plays. The question fans have been asking for years: why wasn't Babylon, one of the oldest civilizations in human history, in the base game? Total War Warhammer goes even further. 3 separate games. That's understandable. There's genuinely a lot of content across them. But inside each game, there are dozens of legendary lords and entire factions sold separately. The Warriors of Chaos in the first game weren't in the base game at launch. They were sold as Day 1 DLC. Content that was ready at release, held back to sell separately. Developers explain it simply. Without additional sales, they can't fund post-launch support. And that's true. Studios genuinely need revenue after release. The question is only where the line is between necessity and greed. Resident Evil is a separate story. Capcom has released several excellent games in recent years: RE7, RE2 Remake, RE Village. But alongside them, a consistent practice has formed. Content that would logically belong in the main game gets released separately. RE Village is a good example. The game came out in 2021. A year later came the Winter's expansion, an edition with a third-person perspective mode and new content about Rosemary. Fans asked a reasonable question: why wasn't the third-person mode in the base game? Technically, nothing prevented them from including it. RE3 Remake in 2020 received criticism for something different. Entire locations and parts of Jill's story from the original RE3 were cut. The game shipped shorter than the 1999 original. That's not a DLC story, but it's the same logic, less for the same money. An important disclaimer: we don't know what happens inside the studio. Content gets cut because of time, budget, decisions made not by the developers, but by the publisher. Capcom is a public company. It answers to shareholders, and that changes decisions. So, why does this continue? The answer is simple and uncomfortable. Because it works. Not because publishers are evil. Because the system is built this way. A public company is required to show growth every quarter, not just profit. Growth. If last quarter you made $1 billion, this quarter you need more than $1 billion. Otherwise the stock drops. Otherwise investors leave. Otherwise layoffs begin. DLC solves this problem elegantly. You release a game, you get paid. 3 months later you release DLC, you get paid again. 6 months later, again. The game keeps generating revenue for years. For shareholders, this is ideal. The problem is that the developers' incentives and the players' incentives stop matching. The developer is interested in you spending as much as possible for as long as possible. The player is interested in getting the maximum for a fixed price. This isn't a conflict of evil intent. It's a conflict of structure. And as long as we keep buying DLC, the structure doesn't change. That's not an accusation. It's just how the mechanic works. So, publishers make games with DLC not because they want to deceive you. They do it because they live inside a system that rewards exactly this kind of behavior. Shareholders, quarterly reports, competition for attention, all of it creates pressure that you ultimately feel sitting in front of your screen. Civilization VI is a good game. Total War Warhammer is a good game. Assassin's Creed Odyssey is a good game. Resident Evil Village is a good game. None of them were made to exploit you, but all of them exist inside a system that has an interest in you spending more. Knowing this doesn't mean stopping playing. It means understanding the rules of the game you're actually playing, not on the screen, but outside of it. How do you deal with DLC? Do you buy it without thinking, wait for sales, or refuse on principle? Write it in the comments. I'm genuinely curious what the split looks like.